Well, good evening again, Everstrong family. Once again, we are back in the book of Galatians, and now we get to conclude this book, this letter, in chapter 6. Now, as all of Paul's writings go, he concludes with a farewell greeting and some kind of admonishment. In this case, he concludes what he's been preaching about legalistic living over faithful living. But I think we've discussed that enough. What I'd actually like to focus on here, and I feel prompted by the Holy Spirit to do so, is verse 1. So what we'll do is we'll read it, and then we'll go into as to why. Verse 1, Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. The reason why I felt the need to bring this up is because, as I mentioned, I believe in my prayer request video on Sunday, I had spoken about somebody who came to me overcome with maybe guilt or shame, or maybe just being worn out by sin that is constantly coming back into their lives. And as much as they've prayed to God to free them from that, or as much as they've tried to stop it on their own will and their own strength, it is still very prevalent in their life. And we prayed for that person without naming who they were, but ultimately I think this is something that we all go through. But on the flip side, this is also something that we see. I know very often in church, it's easy for us to turn a blind eye because we don't want to make any waves. We don't want to make people uncomfortable. And we certainly don't want to get ourselves in trouble by throwing somebody's sin into the limelight. But ultimately, that's what we're called to do. But what I love about this verse is, well, it's the perfect instructions as to how to do so. You don't just call somebody out in the middle of a congregation and say, well, this person's doing this. No. You gently and humbly take them aside and you say, hey, I see something's going on in your life. Do you recognize this? Or if you feel the Holy Spirit giving you specific words to use, follow the commands of the Holy Spirit. But ultimately, the reason why I chose this verse is because we're all going to struggle with sin. We all do, we all have, and we all will. There's no getting outside of that. While we are still in our earthly bodies living here on earth, we are going to struggle with sin. But the best thing we can do is A, those who are struggling with sin, go to God in prayer and go to God's people, as we know iron sharpens iron. But B, as followers of Jesus and members of the same spiritual body, be there for one another. To not bring judgment or guilt or shame, but to acknowledge that even if you've never struggled with this particular sin, you're still a sinner yourself, and there are still sins that you struggle with. And to look on this person not with pity, but with compassion. Embrace them and do what you can to help them. Maybe just by talking to you, God's leading them to get them out of that spot.